Welcome to the Discourse Analyzer AI Toolkit, where articles come alive. You're hearing the audio version of our article. For the full text and an interactive experience, check out the link in the description below. Interact with any section using our AI assistant to enhance your understanding. Let's explore.
Introduction to Cognitivism in Discourse Analysis. Cognitivism, as applied to discourse analysis, offers a fascinating intersection where the study of language meets the mind's inner workings. This approach leverages cognitive theories to understand how mental processes influence the production, comprehension, and interpretation of discourse. It seeks to unravel the complex interplay between cognitive structures and functions, such as memory, perception, and thought, and how these underpin and shape linguistic and communicative practices. 1. The intersection of cognitivism and discourse analysis. The integration of cognitivism into discourse analysis marks a significant shift towards recognizing discourse not merely as a linguistic or social phenomenon but as a cognitive construct. This perspective posits that to fully understand discourse, one must consider the mental representations and processes that facilitate the comprehension and production of language. It explores how individuals store, retrieve, and manipulate information through language, how they use discourse to structure their knowledge of the world, and how this knowledge influences their linguistic choices and interpretations. 1. Key concepts and theoretical foundations. Mental models and situated cognition. One core concept is the idea of mental models, which are cognitive structures that individuals use to represent objects, events, situations, or abstract concepts. Discourse analysis from a cognitive perspective investigates how these models are constructed, accessed, and altered in communication. It also explores situated cognition, how people's understanding and use of language are deeply influenced by the context and their experiences. Schema theory. This theory delves into how knowledge is organized and structured in the mind. Schemas are cognitive frameworks that help individuals organize and interpret information based on their accumulated knowledge and experience. In discourse analysis, schema theory helps explain how people comprehend and produce discourse, as well as how they fill in gaps in information based on their pre-existing knowledge. Cognitive linguistics. Though broader than cognitivism, cognitive linguistics closely aligns with it by emphasizing that language is grounded in our sensory and motor experiences. It studies how linguistic structures reflect the way we think and categorize the world, including concepts like metaphor and embodied cognition, which suggest that our understanding of abstract concepts is rooted in physical experiences. Relevance theory. This cognitive approach to discourse posits that communication is guided by the principle of relevance, which is an individual's innate capacity to process relevant information. It suggests that in any communicative act, individuals automatically seek the most relevant interpretations based on cognitive effort and contextual effects. 2. Applications in discourse analysis. Applying cognitive theories to discourse analysis has led to rich insights across various types of discourse. Narrative analysis. Cognitive approaches have been instrumental in understanding how narratives are structured and comprehended, looking at how storytellers construct mental models and guide listeners through these cognitive representations. Conversational analysis. Cognitive theories help elucidate how interlocutors manage and manipulate conversational implicatures, presuppositions, and inferences, all of which rely heavily on cognitive processing. Critical discourse analysis, CDA. Although CDA traditionally focuses on social and power structures, incorporating a cognitive perspective can deepen understanding of how ideologies are internalized and represented cognitively in discourse. 3. Challenges and considerations. While the cognitive approach to discourse analysis offers profound insights, it also faces challenges, particularly in bridging the gap between observable linguistic data and the internal cognitive processes that underlie discourse production and comprehension. Advances in neuroscience and experimental psychology continue to provide tools and methodologies to address these challenges, allowing for more direct investigation of the neural underpinnings of discourse processes. The intersection of cognitivism and discourse analysis represents a vibrant and continually evolving field that seeks to understand not just what is said or how it is said, but the deeper cognitive mechanisms that drive how we use language to represent and navigate our world. By incorporating cognitive theories into the study of discourse, researchers can offer more nuanced explanations of linguistic phenomena and contribute to a holistic understanding of language as an embodiment of human thought and cognition. 2. Evolution of cognitivism in linguistic studies. The evolution of cognitivism in linguistic studies marks a significant shift in understanding language, emphasizing the role of mental processes in language use, comprehension, and production. This movement, emerging prominently in the latter half of the 20th century, signaled a departure from the then dominant structuralist and generative paradigms, proposing instead that linguistic structures cannot be fully understood without considering their cognitive underpinnings. 1. Historical context. The roots of cognitivism stretch back to earlier psychological and linguistic research, but it gained significant momentum in the 1950s and 1960s with the cognitive revolution, a paradigm shift in psychology that challenged behaviorism's neglect of the mind. Pioneers like Jean Piaget, Noam Chomsky, and later, George Lakoff and others, played crucial roles in this shift, advocating for a deeper investigation into the mental processes behind language and cognition. Jean Piaget introduced theories of cognitive development, emphasizing the stages through which children learn to think and understand the world. Noam Chomsky critiqued the behaviorist view of language learning and introduced the concept of a universal grammar, an innate set of linguistic principles shared by all humans. Although Chomsky's work is more closely associated with generative grammar, his focus on the mental aspects of language laid important groundwork for cognitivism. George Lakoff and Mark Johnson further advanced the field with their work on metaphors and embodied cognition, illustrating how our conceptual understanding and use of language are grounded in physical and sensory experiences. 2. The rise of cognitive approaches. By the 1970s and 1980s, cognitive approaches began to significantly influence linguistic studies, including discourse analysis. Cognitive linguistics emerged as a distinct field, challenging the formalist separation of language and meaning and arguing instead for the inseparability of form, meaning, and context. This period saw the development of cognitive grammar. This framework, developed by Ronald Langacker and others, posits that all grammatical structures have semantic bases, emphasizing the role of conceptualization in syntax and morphology. Conceptual metaphor theory. Lakoff and Johnson's work highlighted how metaphors are not merely linguistic expressions but reflect deeper conceptual structures that shape our thoughts and actions. 3. Cognitive approaches in discourse analysis. As cognitivism evolved, its applications in discourse analysis grew, offering new ways to explore how language reflects and shapes thought. Mental spaces and integration networks. Giles Fauconnier and Mark Turner's work on mental spaces and conceptual blending provided tools for analyzing how speakers and listeners construct meaning in discourse through the integration of disparate domains of knowledge. Narrative structures and cognitive schemas. Researchers began to explore how narrative structures align with cognitive schemas, influencing how information is organized, remembered, and conveyed in storytelling. Discourse coherence and cognitive models. The study of discourse coherence from a cognitive perspective investigates how coherence is achieved not just through linguistic markers but through the activation of shared cognitive models between speakers and listeners. 4. Challenges and contributions. The integration of cognitivism into linguistic studies has not been without challenges, particularly in terms of methodological rigor and the difficulty of empirically studying internal cognitive processes. However, advancements in technology, such as neuroimaging and computational modeling, have provided new avenues for exploration. Cognitivism has fundamentally enriched our understanding of language by highlighting the cognitive structures that underlie linguistic practices and by offering insights into the complex relationship between language, thought, and culture. Its evolution continues to push the boundaries of linguistic studies, promising further interdisciplinary collaboration and deeper insights into the human mind. 3. Objectives of cognitivism in discourse analysis. The integration of cognitivism into discourse analysis reflects a concerted effort to bridge linguistic practices with cognitive processes, aiming to deepen our understanding of how language functions both as a product and a process of human thought. At this intersection, researchers are driven by several core objectives, each designed to unveil the complexities of language use, comprehension, and the mental mechanisms underpinning these phenomena. Here's a closer look at the primary goals and what researchers aim to uncover. 1. Understanding cognitive mechanisms behind language use. One of the primary objectives is to elucidate the cognitive mechanisms that enable and constrain the use of language in social interactions. This includes exploring how individuals process and produce language in real time, how they comprehend and construct meanings, and how memory, attention, and perception interact within linguistic practices. Researchers aim to map out the mental operations that underlie the selection of linguistic structures and the interpretation of discourse. 2. Exploring the role of mental representations in discourse. Cognitivism seeks to understand how mental representations, such as concepts, categories, schemas, and scripts, guide the production and comprehension of discourse. By investigating these representations, researchers aim to uncover how knowledge is organized in the mind and how this organization influences linguistic choices and interpretive strategies in communication. 3. Examining the impact of context on cognition and discourse. Another goal is to analyze the impact of contextual factors, both immediate and broader socio-cultural contexts, on cognitive processes and, by extension, on discourse. This involves studying how context shapes understanding, how individuals use discourse to navigate and negotiate contexts, and how context-specific meanings are constructed and interpreted. 4. Investigating conceptual metaphor and embodied cognition. Researchers also aim to explore the extent to which our conceptual system, as reflected in language, is grounded in physical and sensory experiences. This involves examining metaphors and other figurative language to understand how abstract thinking is influenced by bodily experiences and how this influences discourse practices. 5. Analyzing cognitive structures and processes in narrative construction. Cognitivism aims to dissect the cognitive structures and processes involved in constructing and comprehending narratives. Objectives include understanding narrative coherence, the role of narrative in organizing experience and memory, and how individuals engage with stories to make sense of the world and their place within it. 6. Enhancing cross-disciplinary methodologies. A key objective is to refine and expand the methodologies used in discourse analysis through the incorporation of cognitive science tools and perspectives. This includes leveraging advancements in neuroimaging, computational modeling, and experimental psychology to gain insights into the neural correlates of discourse processes and the cognitive impact of linguistic structures. 7. Applying insights to real-world problems. Finally, cognitivism in discourse analysis aims to apply its insights to address real-world issues, such as improving educational strategies, enhancing communication in multicultural and multilingual settings, designing more effective communication in health and legal contexts, and developing better interfaces and systems for human-computer interaction. By pursuing these objectives, researchers at the intersection of cognitivism and discourse analysis not only contribute to our theoretical understanding of language and cognition but also offer practical insights that can improve communication practices across various domains. Conclusion. In conclusion, cognitivism's integration into discourse analysis has revolutionized the field by providing profound insights into the cognitive processes underpinning language use, comprehension, and production. By focusing on the mental mechanisms and structures that facilitate linguistic practices, this approach has bridged the gap between abstract linguistic theories and the tangible realities of human cognitive capacities. From the exploration of mental models and situated cognition to the application of cognitive theories in various types of discourse, cognitivism offers a comprehensive framework for understanding the intricate relationship between thought, language, and context. It not only enriches our theoretical knowledge but also has practical implications for improving communication across different domains. As this field continues to evolve, fueled by advances in neuroscience and experimental psychology, its potential to contribute to a holistic understanding of human cognition and linguistic practices remains boundless. Cognitivism in discourse analysis not only challenges us to reconsider the foundations of linguistic theory but also invites us to explore new methodologies and interdisciplinary collaborations that promise to deepen our insights into the human mind. Frequently asked questions. What is cognitivism in discourse analysis? Cognitivism in discourse analysis is an approach that integrates cognitive theories with the study of language to understand how mental processes influence the production, comprehension, and interpretation of discourse. It explores the relationship between cognitive functions, such as memory, perception, and thought, and linguistic practices. How does cognitivism differ from other approaches in discourse analysis? Unlike approaches that view discourse solely as a linguistic or social phenomenon, cognitivism sees discourse as a cognitive construct. It focuses on mental representations and processes, emphasizing how individuals' knowledge and cognitive structures influence their use and interpretation of language. What are key concepts in cognitive discourse analysis? Key concepts include mental models, situated cognition, schema theory, cognitive linguistics, and relevance theory. These concepts explore how individuals use cognitive structures to represent the world, organize knowledge, and process language in context. Can you explain mental models and their significance in discourse analysis? Mental models are cognitive representations that individuals use to understand objects, events, situations, or abstract concepts. In discourse analysis, they are crucial for examining how these models are constructed and modified through communication, influencing comprehension and production of discourse. What is situated cognition and why is it important? Situated cognition posits that understanding and using language are deeply influenced by the context and an individual's experiences. It's important because it highlights how people's interpretations and linguistic choices are shaped by the specific situations in which they communicate. How does schema theory apply to discourse analysis? Schema theory explores how knowledge is structured in the mind, using schemas as cognitive frameworks for organizing information. In discourse analysis, it helps explain how individuals comprehend and produce discourse and make inferences based on their existing knowledge. What is the role of cognitive linguistics in cognitivism? Cognitive linguistics, aligned with cognitivism, studies how language reflects our thought processes and categorizations of the world. It emphasizes that linguistic structures are grounded in sensory and motor experiences, affecting how we understand abstract concepts. What insights have cognitive theories brought to narrative analysis? Cognitive theories have shed light on how narratives are structured and comprehended, focusing on the construction of mental models by storytellers and how these guide the audience's understanding. How does cognitivism address conversational analysis? It elucidates the cognitive underpinnings of conversational dynamics, including how individuals manage implications, presuppositions, and inferences, which are integral to effective communication. What are some challenges faced by cognitive approaches to discourse analysis? Challenges include bridging the gap between observable linguistic data and internal cognitive processes, and the difficulty of empirically studying these processes. Advances in neuroscience and experimental psychology are helping to address these challenges. How has cognitivism evolved in linguistic studies? Cognitivism has moved linguistic studies beyond structuralist and generative paradigms to emphasize mental processes in language comprehension and production, marked by significant developments in cognitive linguistics, conceptual metaphor theory, and cognitive grammar. What objectives does cognitivism aim to achieve in discourse analysis? Objectives include understanding cognitive mechanisms behind language use, exploring mental representations in discourse, analyzing the impact of context on cognition and discourse, investigating conceptual metaphors and embodied cognition, and applying insights to real-world problems. How do cognitive approaches enhance discourse analysis methodologies? By incorporating cognitive science tools and perspectives, such as neuroimaging and computational modeling, cognitive approaches offer new ways to explore the neural and cognitive foundations of discourse processes, enriching theoretical and practical understanding of language.